Alright guys, on a stream, which you guys should totally tune into all the time, I thought to myself, what would make me what kind of video would I really enjoy making? And honestly, I think the answer is quite simple. I've seen other YouTubers make unpopular opinion videos, and they're seriously fun to watch, so I decided, why not make one myself? This video has two parts. The first part will consist of your beautiful, questionable opinions, and the second part will consist of mine. This video is going to be a ton of fun. Unless you're me and you have to edit the whole thing. I guess we should do some kind of intro for this.
I'm the person who went to the bathroom and ate super stuff clear.
We got a certified gamer in the chat. We also have James.
I've not beaten P3. I do have like 300 hours in the game though. Continue.
So we got like this party of people. We're gonna be looking at some unpopular Hollow Knight opinions. I've got some collected for us to look at. So we're gonna look at some opinions from some people on the internet. I asked in just a community post. I asked on several Discord servers in several places, and we're gonna just talk about them and see if we agree with them. I think this will be really funny.
Every second I'm looking at your freaking Path of Pain and Celeste mod, it just gets worse.
We are going to start with other people's opinions, and then we're going to move on to our own. So number one, and I'm just remembering this from YouTube because it's like the only thing that I got from a community post. A person said, Carefree Melody is garbage, not just in its design, but also just in the quality of the charm, and it sucks in every situation, including any radiance. Rox, you're probably the best person to talk about this.
That's wrong. I mean, it's not a great charm in a lot of situations. I mean, like, it's an okay charm in most situations, and for any radiance, it's like literally a top charm. So my biggest question to this person is, have they literally ever played any rat?
Yeah, I also do not agree that it's poor in terms of how strong it is. I do agree that it's a really badly designed charm. I think it's awfully designed. And I think that one of the points, like, I think this person might not have just been saying that it's weak for any radiance. They might have meant that it's not fun for any radiance.
That I can understand.
Yeah, you agree with that, right, Rox?
Any radiance is any fun at all?
I don't like relying on the luck factor, and I'm not saying that means people who beat any radiance with it are like not skilled at the game, but I just hate the addition of the extra RNG into the boss fight, because there's enough RNG in any radiance.
Yeah.
So
I think as someone who has not beaten P3 and had the most trouble in P2 because of blobbles, I don't think I'm qualified, but I feel like anything that causes me to lose less is good.
Fact is positive. We're talking about that right there. We were just talking about gameplay. Just is it fun or well?
Yeah, because like just based off of RNG, it's kind of annoying. So I personally have always put Carefree Melody at the very bottom of my charm tier list just because I don't like the charm. I know it's not that bad. It's probably around the same as like Heart in most situations, except it's better for the late game in general. It's just not fun to use in any situation, and it's 3 notches, so it's not like you can just slap it onto your build for no cost. It's like you have to play the Carefree Melody game, and I don't want to play the Carefree Melody game. I would imagine it might help a little bit for certain things that you might be trying, like if you're trying to do like an ascended boss fight, it might be nice because it does nullify the entire attack if you get hit by ascended bosses, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it is like, I guess, more valuable in that situation. It's just, yeah, it's not a great charm.
The thing is, if you're taking more damage, there are also fewer times you get hit, so the odds of it happening are lower.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not a charm that I would want to use ever.
Yeah, that one is like not something that everyone can talk about. I want to get some things that James can talk about too. So let's move on to the next thing. Okay. Someone on a Discord server said that they thought that GPZ and Watch Your Knights are some of the best bosses in the game.
I hated Grey Prince though, for all intents and purposes, and I wish never to have to fight him again, which is why I don't plan on doing P5.
Yeah, I mean, I like Watcher Knights quite a bit. I think they're a fun boss. I think they're actually a relatively well-made boss, unless you're playing 1.5 or something, and then they're annoying, because back rolls are annoying. I wouldn't say they're one of the best bosses in the game, but I'd definitely say they're one of the better bosses in the game.
They're not like below average, like, you know, half the bosses. I just said the most obvious stupid thing in the world. I mean, there's a lot of bosses that really suck in Hollow Knight. Like, I love the game. There's a lot of bosses that suck. Marmu is the Carefree Melody of boss fights.
With GPZ is so hard to get consistent at doing hitless. Out of all the bosses, I would say he is by far the hardest to do hitless consistently, in my my experience at least.
I can understand that.
At least
Yeah.
when I used to grind R5 a lot, I was pretty consistently no-hitting every boss, and GPZ was definitely like one of my least consistent.
So I think that GPZ is really good boss. It's a really good boss, except when you're trying to do it hitless. So
I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
All right, next up, someone in the Hollow Knight Discord said that Watcher Knights is annoyingly RNG based.
I wish I had more context here as to what the RNG is.
I don't know.
Yes, there's RNG in the fight, but like, it's not like the fight is totally based on RNG or anything. I mean, yes, it's annoying when one of them does the like bounce and the other does the roll, but like realistically, it's still very dodgeable if you're not both very unlucky and in a terrible position.
James,
So-
you there? I need to get
I'm here.
I need to get the 110% opinion on this.
Actually, it's 109. Excuse me. I had like no trouble with Watcher Knights. I found it really easy and fun.
Okay, cool. Moving on. Next one. This is one that I saw from a YouTube video. NKG is a bad boss because it's painfully boring after you've beaten it once.
I haven't fought NKG.
I would say that I can actually kind of relate to. I wouldn't say it's painfully boring because it's far from the most annoying boss at that point. Honestly, that kind of loses its effect if you actually get good at the boss and can beat it really quickly, because then it's kind of satisfying.
It's definitely a
So-
controversial opinion. I think that NKG is one of the most overrated bosses in the game.
I would agree.
I think that Mantis Lords is another one that's extremely overrated. I think that NKG is probably the most overrated though.
Honestly, I don't know. I might say Sisters of Battle is more overrated.
I would put Sisters of Battle in my top 5 bosses. I don't know
Same.
how much further it would go than that. So it's definitely a great boss. I just think that it's not like a work of art. Tribe of Battle, I really enjoyed. Even though it's a modded boss fight, I thought that was
I've never
so
played it.
fun. You
I've
should
never
try
played
it.
it.
It's really fun because it's not just like they added a 4th Mantis or they made them go faster. It's like you add the Trader Lord in and it's like suddenly it just becomes a D-Dark playground, which D-Dark is like
Yeah, I
the
was
most
gonna
fun
say.
thing in the game to use. So I enjoyed
If you
that.
want to spam D-Dark, Anirad's another good option there. I mean...
But Enurad isn't made to be fun.
But it is fun until
Okay.
you get to climb. When you get to climb, it sucks.
Yeah,
But
that's
until then, it's fun.
that's just you. They said glowing womb is awesome.
No.
What's
no.
its damage rate? Isn't it better than Shade Soul?
For each point of soul, yeah, it's better than Shade Soul. I think it's true if you're getting double hits.
Why do we hit on that charm anyway?
It uses your darn soul, and it's so annoying because spells, realistically, relative to DPS, spells are better. So if you're playing so you have just enough soul to cast spells, and Glowing Wound just denies you entirely, it's so annoying.
Well, if you're saying that
And then
womb
I'll-
does more damage per soul, is it just not
Yeah.
better DPS?
The thing is, that's not DPS, so if you're trying to actually play the game at a high level relative to combat, it just slows you down and gets annoying and messes with your own feel for how much soul you have.
Okay, I think that glowing womb, from what you've just said, I think it's probably a little bit underrated. Like, it's probably not the worst charm in the game. It's just not very
It's
good.
not, but it's...
So it ranges from situationally okay to actively bad.
I mean, I'd say in very, very few situations it can be useful, but that's usually modded or rando. Just
Alright.
playing the game vanilla is basically never actually like a good charm.
This person says, and I quote, Salubra's blessing isn't annoying. You guys are just mean.
They're wrong.
Person hasn't listened to it enough.
I wish there was a way to get it to shut up, but I don't think it should be the default.
QOL. I actually am indifferent to Salubra's blessing and the noise it makes. I think it's funny. I can understand how it would get really annoying. I do think it's funny though, and for that reason, I'm okay with it existing. I just do think that there should probably be a way to turn it off. But I think it's a good upgrade. Like, the ability to have soul just always
Yeah.
is nice.
It's useful, for sure. After spending many, many, many hours sitting on benches listening to it, it does definitely get very annoying. So, yeah, it's definitely funny at first.
It'd be nice
And-
if you could disable it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, if there was like a volume setting or something.
In the keybinds menu, you see at the very bottom, it says like Salubra, and there's
Disable
literally
the
just a
Salubra
keybind
volume.
for Salubra, and you press that keybind
Yes.
and you can adjust the volume. And like, you just start the game and
That
you
would
look
be
at it, it's
great.
like, oh my god, I'm gonna get a new upgrade called Salubra. It'd be really nice if it was unlocked earlier. All right, next one. Queen's Gardens is the worst area. Strong disagree.
Okay.
I really disagree with that.
Yes, massive disagree.
James, input?
Queen's Gardens is the worst area?
Yeah, they said
That
it's
was
the
the
worst.
opinion, yeah.
That's odd. odd.
I really like Queen's Gardens because it is one of the areas that has the most gimmicks. It has the falling platforms, it also has acid pits, it also has spike pits, which spike and acid pits are the same thing. It has 2 substantial arenas, and it has like basically the only platforming sections in the entire game besides like the climb to city in Fungal Wastes and the White Palace as a whole. Like,
Very nice that it's actually a platforming area that isn't like totally sectioned off from the rest of the map. I think that's actually really good because there really isn't all that much difficult platforming in the game. I really like Queen's Gardens.
and it has, you know, one of the big story beats of the game being the White Fragment.
Like,
Also,
yes, everything is platforming.
it's challenging. Like, the enemies are actually challenging. There are arenas in it that are actually hard, at least if you have low gear or if you're new to the game. But
Also
that's
true.
good. That's well
I
designed
agree.
because general enemy combat is kind of neglected outside of the Colosseums. So next up we have Hot Spring. So Hot Spring has some interesting opinions. Opinion number 1, GPZ is not hard at all. I disagree with that. I don't
Okay.
understand where he's coming from.
Let me just say, he's never done any of the things GPZ is hard in. He hasn't done all binding, and he hasn't done R5. Or, I mean, like, yes, he's done it Radiant, but, like, doing it Radiant once is free. So, shush. Doing it consistently Radiant is a completely separate matter.
If GPZ is not hard, then what is hard? Like, if GPZ is the standard for a not hard boss, there's gonna be like 2 bosses in the entire game that are actually hard. And we already know James' opinion on GPZ.
I don't like.
Would you say it's a free boss?
Nah, he's a little stinker. I don't like him.
Second opinion is that No Eyes is the best Dream Warrior by far. I also disagree with this.
What? What does No Eyes have going for it other than maybe being atmospheric? That's
I
like
don't
the only
know.
thing.
It's so annoying to just chase it down. Like, whenever you get hit twice by the spike pits. I don't know. There's just so many times where it becomes just so difficult to hit because it goes into really awkward positions.
It's just annoying. I don't understand because, by the way, for people watching, Hot Spring is a speedrun, so I don't know how he could possibly like No Eyes. If a speedrunner's perspective, I would think no competition Gorb is the least annoying. He's certainly less annoying than No Eyes.
All right, James, do you agree with Hot Spring's claim that it's the best Dream boss?
Would you kill me if I said that's Markov?
No, I actually agree with that.
Honestly, I can see that.
Markov's
I mean-
kind of fun. I haven't fought him without a floor, so I don't know how that goes, but all the other ones are just a little boring, because at least Markov has more than one attack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Or the same attack, but why is just the same attack, but it increases? 0,
Yeah.
the same attack, but it increases. Like,
Well, Markov also does the same attack, but it increases, but he also has a second attack. I appreciate Markov for what it is. I mean, it's one of the most late-game Dream bosses, so it's gonna be like that. I like Markov. Markov is cool. I don't know if it's my favorite of the Dream bosses, but I think it's good. All right, next up, we have from Sparky, who is a moderator in my Discord. Number 1 opinion, Sharp Shadow is in the top 5 best charms. You know my stance on Sharp Shadow already. It's literally in my About Me, I believe, that Sharp Shadow is a garbage charm. It's so bad. I made like a 16-minute video explaining there are some charms that are really overrated and underrated, and Sharp Shadow is just insanely bad because the problem with it, so if you have Sharp Shadow equipped, you're basically putting yourself even further from the boss than you would be with just normal death, so it's so
Yeah.
hard to be aggro when you're using Sharp Shadow. Also, Sharp Shadow is inconsistent because sometimes it hasn't refreshed by the time you need to use it, and then you dash directly into the boss and you take 2 masks.
Because just getting used to Shade Cloak timing, I don't think that's really a fair criticism. I think Sharp Shadow is very situational in being decent.
I don't think
A
it's
lot of the time,
situational. I don't think
it's-
there's a...
Really? You don't think it's good for Path of Pain speedrun?
Well, okay, shut up. Like, I'm just thinking base game stuff, it's not useful. I used it for Sly when I did it Radiant so that I got further away from the Great Slash if I timed it too early. That was literally the only reason why I used it there. Did I use it in anything else? I think I used it in Failed Champion as well.
I think you underrate the charm. I'm not saying I think it's a good charm, but I think you give it too little credit because it's far from the worst charms.
There are definitely charms that are worse. I don't think it's very far from the worst.
I think it's very far from the worst. I mean, like, things like Thorns exist.
I'm not saying it's the worst. I think Thorns, I think Dashmaster, I think Joni's Blessing, I think Defender's Crest. I think those are all worse charms. There's probably more that I haven't thought of. But, James, what's your opinion on Sharp Shadow?
I like it. I think it's I think it does its job perfectly well. I feel like it may not be perfect for park.
And, okay. Never mind, he's back.
Meow. Did you just kick me out?
Wow, Aiden. Wow.
I think think Sharp Shadow is perfectly serviceable for combat if you play around it correctly. So my conclusion is it sucks. It's pretty bad for parkour, but otherwise, skill issue, Aiden. Skill issue.
Yes, Aiden definitely has a skill issue. But at the same time,
great.
Sharp Shadow is also like, if you're actually trying to play something anywhere near optimally, Sharp Shadow is pretty much never gonna be the option.
So the next person in the unpopular opinions list literally just listed stuff that's not really unpopular opinions. Like the first one is they don't like the charm binding. I don't think it's unpopular that
It's like
the charm binding is
most common binding related opinion there is.
Wet Fish says Shape of Un sucks. I don't think that there was anyone who was arguing Shape of Un was really good, but I think that there are some people who probably think that.
Full-out heal builds are actually pretty darn strong.
I agree.
I think it's not very interesting, but that's just me. And I mean, Shape of Un, if you combine it with like Quick Focus, you can basically always heal in most bosses.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is pretty strong if you're basically damage tanking at everything because you don't know how to dodge. I saw someone first try GPZ because they had Shape of Un and Quick Focus on and Grub Song, and they were just literally healing the entire fight. They didn't dodge like any of the attacks, but still beat it first try.
That happens. All right, James, what were you saying?
Shape of Un is the only reason I won the Eternal Ordeal.
There are rules relative to what's good with Eternal Ordeal that basically only apply to Eternal Ordeal.
I beat the Eternal Ordeal with the minion build, so I really can't talk about charm builds there. And the thing is, I feel like it worked. This person also said Quick Focus is garbage because it takes away slots that could be used on Mark of Pride or Strength. Why Mark of Pride and not Quick Slash did you mention? I guess that makes sense because it's like filler, but like, yeah, Quick Focus is kind of expensive. Anyways, we'll get to that later because I have an unpopular opinion about Quick Focus.
Yeah,
so
but phase
we'll talk about
tanking
it.
some bosses is extremely funny.
It is funny, that's true. All right, so now we have Tio. Tio now has opinions, and opinions are real. GPZ is the best boss in the game. I can understand where you're coming from.
No way he actually thinks that. No, I can understand seeing it, but at the same time, I very strongly disagree.
I think GPZ is probably in my top 5. I haven't really looked at the boss list in a while, but I think that GPZ is a very good boss. I used to say it was in my top 2. I don't agree with that anymore, because then I realized that Absrad doesn't suck. I just needed to get good.
That's currently me with GPZ.
I think GPZ is pretty cool. I don't think it's fun at all to do hitless, but just doing it normally is pretty decently fun.
That's fair. I think doing it normally, it's one of the best bosses.
I think Grey Prince Zote is a little stink.
And then Tio also said the Zote main screen is the best. No one's arguing with that. It's funny, it's cool. I like it's also the least boring of them. I don't think anyone's gonna argue with that.
Kidding me? Someone's gonna argue with it.
Okay, fine. All right, so first up, Soul Tyrant is the best boss in the game. I like Soul Tyrant. I don't think it's the best. I actually prefer Soul Master because it's easier to get combo hits on.
You can usually catch up to him if you really try.
Sometimes.
I like Soul Tyrant actually quite a bit.
I think he was my first dream boss.
He was mine too. Next up, someone said that Radiant Zote is not that bad. I don't know. I think it's one of the hardest ones.
Yes, but it's still not that hard. Yes, it's harder than most, but like a lot of them are pretty easy.
Radiant Zote is, I would say, in the top 3 hardest things that you can do in Hollow Knight that actually give a reward that aren't all bindings or R5. I think it's one of the hardest things. I mean, okay, fine. P5, but with bindings is probably harder. Like doing charm binding P5 is probably harder than Radiant Zote, but like I don't think there's a whole ton that's harder. And like Radiant Absrat is probably harder. Markoth is another one that people say is really hard. I did Markoth pretty early. I did it about halfway through my Radiant clears just because I wanted to see if I could. So I really can't speak on it. Since I did it so early, I don't know if it was hard because it was the hardest one that I had done at the time, but I also hadn't done anything hard at the time.
I would say Markoth is overrated in difficulty a lot.
Also, if you use nail art and don't be stupid, it's really easy.
I've said it once and I'll say it again. Skill issue.
That's pretty accurate. The last one, Hive Knight is an awesome boss. Thoughts on Hive Knight? I don't think it's one of the best bosses because it's kind of jank sometimes,
He
but
is kind of jank.
I still think it's a good boss. I like it. It's above average. It's got the same structure as like Hornet, and I like that structure. Like I like it when the boss doesn't focus on projectiles and is mostly just a melee boss.
Read the community again.
Oh, they just said that they really like Hive Knight. I mean, their opinion, like
Yeah.
the way that they said their opinion was really weird. They said they thought that Hive Knight was a better rival type boss than Hornet or Lost Kin. Lost Kin and Hive Knight are not rival boss. They're not rivalries. Like you fight them
You
both
just
once.
murder them.
Yeah, they're not anything special. Hornet is the only one that's like an actual rival. So I'm gonna change their wording and just say Hive Knight is a great boss. I don't think it's better than Lost Kin. It might be better than Hornet. It's not better than Lost Kin.
I really need to make the ends of these videos better. Anyways, I think it's important to address the elephant in the room.
2 months ago, Stizzle made a community post asking for people's unpopular opinions. It's pretty easy to see this video as just stealing from that, and to that I say, this video has been in production for far longer than 2 months. This was in fact recorded in early March or February, I forget which exactly, but the point still stands. This is original content, I promise. I'm not trying to steal from Stizzle at all. Anyways, this is only part 1 of 2. This video ended up being so long that I decided to make the second half of the call where we discuss our own unpopular opinions a separate video. That will hopefully be out by the end of May. Anyways, I'll see you all there. In the meantime, I have English homework to do. See ya.